Well, I was going to make a video about going to Dwarven Ruins, which I absolutely love Dwarven Ruins, but I came across a mod I found interesting. Miss Shirley Curly, grandma YouTuber herself, got made into a mod, and well, let's just say I love it. But without further ado, let's get into Miss Grandma YouTuber
Ah,
herself.
you look like a brave, strong adventurer. I wonder if you could help me with something.
Look at you, Miss Shirley. Well, off to your right you saw a ping room, and off to your left you saw your cellar, which we'll go down there later, but there's a lot of interesting stuff down there. Nice, pretty foyer. Trust me, I'd love to actually live in this house. It's pretty cool. And off to your right you have your kitchen. You have your stairs and a little dining table. Off to your left of the house,
Ah, you look like a brave, strong adventurer. I wonder. Calm down, Tiger.
just push past Miss Grandma. You have a room off to your right, and off to your left there is another room, presumably the guest room. And that is your horn you use to call Grandma herself. I'm not going to pick it up, I'll come back and get it later. And a sweet recipe. Notably, that little chest off to the side says grandkids. Because in her videos, we are her grandkids. This door leads to her room. Nothing major here, it's your typical room. Still pretty cool nonetheless.
Ah, you look like a brave, strong adventurer.
See what I mean?
I
Grandkids
wonder if you could
chest.
help me with something.
Pretty cool, huh? The time they took the details to incorporate into this video, into this mod pack, and into herself. And not to mention, this actually is completely voiced by her too, which is pretty neat. So the amount of detail they put into this is awesome. But down here is where she really shines. Right away, you're met with a nice, beautiful picnic area. And this tells you she's an adventurer. She's been to Dwarven ruins and everything. She has your little Dwarven chest, your alchemy table. I'm not quite sure what that glowing thing is. I'm gonna figure it out later because I really want to know. And for those of you who don't know, those 3 books on the bottom are actually skill books. I know that because I've done this video 6 times trying to get it right, but between the lag murdering me and interruptions of my daily life, yeah. Now we come to her little forge chest, or her forging area. She's forged some beautiful weapons, but none as beautiful as the ones we're going to take and bring back to her, and she's going to use them when they follow you around. And all these little chests she has shows her time as an adventurer. I'm just going to leave everything here because honestly, I love it. I love the aspect. I love the way it's set up. I don't want to ruin this mod. I don't want to be that person. But this is where she really shines as an adventurer. I actually tried going to see if I could get her stuff early and just bring it back to her, but now you actually have to start the quest. A little bit of a downside, but at least I got all the enemies out of the way beforehand. But as I was saying, a lot of people don't know Miss Shirley Curly. Everyone calls basically YouTube grandma, and she calls everyone her grandkids. Is a YouTuber who vlogs and plays Skyrim and tells stories. She is a lovely lady and very amazing. And this mod brings her to life as a follower, where she was promised a spot in Elder Scrolls 6, but that seems to be years away with the release of the Anniversary Edition. So said modder, I forgot his name, took it upon himself to incorporate her into this. She got to pick the house, she voiced it herself, and She knows a lot about Skyrim. Going back to Elder Scrolls Oblivion, might I add. Speaking about the Welkin Stones, which you'll see later in the video. And yeah, I just love her. If you ever get a chance to go visit her YouTube channel, I welcome you to give her a subscription, help her out, and just sit down and watch it. But she truly is amazing if you are a Skyrim fan like I am. I'll actually post a link below in the video as well. That way you just click on it and head there yourself. But without further ado, we are at the castle. There's about 3 guards up front. Easily disposed of. Especially when you put God mode on, I'm just saying. But don't give me shit for that. I did this for a walkthrough video and not to make myself struggle. But Silent Moon Camps is actually its own little special forge. Said to be able to forge special weapons, but the weapons only seem to work at a certain time of night. Honestly, I see a little bit of a downside, but when the two moons are out, they are super powerful. I haven't got a chance to test it yet. This name is actually called the Lunar Forge. And on that desk right there, on the little workbench right there, is one of the lunar weapons themselves. Your chest carries some pretty above standard loot. You have the notes from from Grandma herself. You have your sword and another level up book. So if you're in the market for making money, yeah, sell those. Or you could take them home and put them on your bookshelf as your collection. Going downstairs, we head into the main area where you'll actually be picking up her weapons. And there's about 3 enemies down here as well. Not too hard to dispose of. Off to your left, you see a table and a little dining area. Campfire for warmth. And a little section of corridors leading to a room. They can be picked open, but there's actually room inside. I keep forgetting how loud that actually is. I'm gonna have to turn volume down on those and knuckle. After you get rid of the enemies, you have your chest. About average loot, well, minus the 80 gold. You walk back through. And with my sucky lockpicking skills on PC, because I don't do this very often, I'm more of a console gamer. I didn't bring no locks this time. But that bookshelf right there is where they'll be laying against. You got your chest in the middle room, about standard loot in it as well. But yeah, no weapons, as you can clearly see. Only one chest actually gives you good loot and stuff. You get actually help. I mean, granted, if your mercantile skills high enough, you could actually get some good loot out of them and certain perks. But that they're all standard. So with the enemies clear out, we go back to Brightwood and we can start our quest. Should be easy enough. Go in. Miss Shirley's gonna talk to you. You say yes. You go get her bow,
I,
her
some
sword.
rotten bandits from a hideout nearby broke in recently, and they stole my favorite great sword and bow. Would you be a dear and go fetch them for me? Bye.
I would love to, milady. I'll go fetch your equipment for you. Yeah, as you can see, my frame rates aren't too good. My computer is still a potato. So, if 21 frame rates is the best I'm gonna get, I'll accept it. I mean, that's what I gotta work with, and I really like making these videos. I did try writing one out and reading it, but man, it just sounded too forced. I don't like that. Being able to speak freely from the mind is actually a God-given gift, and I love it. And I just love how the sword just like magically jumps at you. It's like, oh hey, I'm here, come get me. With bow and sword in hand, we go back to Brightwood. And this last half right here, I'm letting you know right now will be a lot of talking, but these are Grandma's stories, and I'm a sucker for a good story. So I actually will be sitting there listening through it and playing through all of it. So if you want to stick around, be my guest. If not, you just glaze over and give her stuff and you have a follower. But I want to go into the lore of Grandma Shirley. And yes, I just turned my horse into a fucking pony. At this time, she'll be upstairs in her bed. And one thing I want y'all to notice is that map on the wall. That is the province of Skyrim,
What's up?
which I particularly love because I actually have
Oh,
I
thank
actually
you.
have the
Thank
Skyrim
you so
edition,
much.
and owning a
Say, you
collector's
seem
version
to handle
of
yourself
Oblivion as
quite
well.
well
I
out
have the
there.
Providence of
Now that I
Cyrodiil
have
too.
my weapons back,
I love
perhaps you'd
both
let
the
me
maps.
tag along a while?
I'd love for you to tag along.
Oh, yes. I've been sitting here too long. I want to see Skyrim again. And since you're here, I can guess you have the urge for adventure and exploration too.
Oh, but I do.
Oh, don't worry about that, dear. I have more experience than any 5 mercenaries you could find put together.
I mean, I
I've
get where they're
forgotten
coming
more
from
about
when they ask
fighting
them
than
this
they've
question,
ever
but I
even
just
learned.
still find it condescending and rude.
Wonderful.
If she couldn't handle
Let's
herself,
get
she
going.
wouldn't go in the first place. I'm just saying.
Hmm. How about you just call me Grandma? Yeah, that feels right.
And she actually is more of up close and personal style too, so
All
she
right.
plays the barbarian.
All right.
Story time.
All right. All right. It's where the adventure is. Nope, that's it. And don't call me Shirley. Call me Grandma. Do you
Straight
like it?
from Grandma herself.
And I doubt you will again. That's not far from the truth. Well, I was never much of an archer. I don't like to shoot at an enemy from a distance. I like to get up close and personal, you know? Right. Well, some time ago, I was contacted by a priestess. She and some other people who worshipped Kine at Eldergling's sanctuary, had been driven out by hag ravens. Who knows what hag ravens ever want? Probably to use the tree for its power, or corrupt it or something.
Or you could get
Yes,
drunk
I
and marry
did.
one.
I drove those beasts right out and let the people back in. Well, they said they didn't have anything to pay me, so they all prayed to the Eldergling, and the Eldergling decided to give me this. Yes, I think it's still alive, too. It blossoms sometimes and always smells green and fresh. And the best part is that it kind of knows what to do. Like I said, I was never a good archer, but this bow is easy to draw and the arrows seem to know where to go. And now, with all these dragons about, I'm really glad I have it. It's hard to charge something that's flying. It is amazing, isn't it? And you might never again. Well, I'm not much of a blacksmith. I learned enough to keep up my weapons and my armor, but I've always been interested in unique forges and weapons. The Sky Forge, for example. So when I found Silent Moon's camp and the Lunar Forge, I kind of got obsessed. Well, because no one knew anything about it. People knew the name of the place, but not why it was called that. Yes, I expect that's why it was stolen. Those bandits were hoping to use my weapon to figure out how to use the forge. Patience, trial and error. It took years. I made weapons during the day, but they were all normal. Even at night, they were all normal. Well, that ended up being the key. In order to activate the Lunar Forge, I had to be using it at night, when both moons were out and visible right over the forge. Kind of makes sense when you think about it. One night I happened to arrive just as both moons were leaving the opening over the forge. I could feel that it was, I don't know, awake, but I didn't have enough time to do anything that night. I paid a maid to make a moon chart for me so I'd know when I had another opportunity, and I was ready. I had all my materials, and as soon as the moons were in view and I felt the forge wake up, I made my weapon. Just an iron dagger. Oh yes, I'll save you all the details of testing it, but I made a lot of weapons and tried them out. I found that I needed to use a metal with the iron. The more iron, the better. The weapon might be less quality, but it was more powerful. But only at night. Only at night when the moons were out. I didn't need soul gems or magic or anything, but I did need the moons. Oh no, they were pretty standard looking. I could probably make you one right now, or show you how at least. But I began to wonder if I could make it more powerful. Have you heard of meteoric iron and glass? I read about it in a book called Magic from the Sky. It's basically pieces of Aetherius that have fallen to Mundus. In my travels, I'd come across many of the Alien wells, which are made from the iron, and found Welkin and Varla stones.
Hence why you see all
But
the
I'm not a mage, so they
Dwarven
didn't really
stuff in
interest
her
me.
cellar.
But I began to wonder what would happen if I made a weapon from meteoric iron and used a Varla or a Welkin stone as well.
That welcome stone actually
It
goes
took
back
me
to
a while.
Cyrodiil. You'll
but I
find those
gathered
in the
all the
in the
materials,
Woken ruins.
and this is what I made.
I, I think that's what called. I forgot actually.
Oh, yes.
But as
It was a
you
process of
escape,
years to discover all
yeah, as
this,
you're
to
escaping the
test
prison
everything,
in
to find the materials,
Oblivion,
and to make
that's
the
the first thing
sword.
you come across is one of those ruins, which is
I don't
full of
have it
Woken
in me to
stones.
do it again, but I could help you make a weapon for you. Yes, I do. I thought about it, but no, I didn't. I was already pretty old by that time, older than most soldiers. But more than that, being a soldier means fighting in ranks and taking orders from someone else. That's not my way. I'm not scared of battle, but I'm not going to have some idiot telling me how to fight. I just kept doing what I always did, but I used my sword to help refugees escaping the war instead of just normal adventuring. Oh yes, very dangerous for anyone who got in my way. Seriously though, it was terribly dangerous for everyone. Dominion soldiers were everywhere, especially chasing wood elves and high elves who didn't agree with them and were trying to get out of Somerset and Valenwood. Yes, many of them, so many. But I'm still here, so you can guess how those fights turned out. I imagine they'd like to get their hands on me. As for the refugees, a lot of them couldn't afford my help normally. They had left almost everything behind. But I was in it for the adventure anyway. I probably did more traveling and saw more interesting things during those times than any other time in my life. And often they had some story, a bit of knowledge, or an old trinket, or something they would exchange for my services. No, not everyone. But I think that's enough of that. Because that's how you get to Sovngarde. When I was young, I used to think that. At night, I would take a knife from the table and hold it under my pillow, just in case I died while I was sleeping. Not now. I mean,
That's not a
they
recent
probably
thing
mean
too, as
that,
far
but
as Skyrim goes.
I
And
expect
no mission
even
is
the most
Cyrodiil,
literal of Nords don't
and
think
no.
it means you have to have a sword.
Sorry, let me rephrase
I'm
that.
sure there are mages who died
In no
with
version of
fireball
Oblivion
spell
do
in
the
their hand,
Nords
or
say
maybe a brave
they're going to
chef
die with
who
a sword in their hand.
died with a ladle or a frying pan in his hands.
This has happened. This has development over the
To
years of
me, it means
Skyrim.
never give up. Even if you think you'll lose or you can't do it, keep fighting. If you're going down, go down fighting, with a sword in your hands. They didn't get to Sovngarde because they won. They got there because they didn't give up. All right. Oh, of course. I love to tell stories.
And I love to hear them.
Well, let me tell you about Catamet. Catamet was a Khajiit trader and adventurer. He didn't want to be a hero. He didn't want to join any guilds or become
That's
famous.
probably a cat. The picture is on our wall by
He
the
just
stairs too.
loved exploring new places,
If y'all
killing
missed that, there's a
bandits
picture of
and
a cat on the
looting them.
stairs.
He wasn't trying to save the world. He was mostly concerned with not dying and getting a good price for what he found. And being able to carry all the things he found. That was always important.
As every Khajiit
He
should.
lived this way for years and amassed great wealth and even some fame. And he also found what he didn't expect. He made a great friend, another Khajiit trader who traveled with him. They saved each other's lives many times. He had animals that traveled with him too. A great tamed cat, and later one of those blue goblin things from Solstheim. and he found love, a Nord woman who traveled with him when he first started out. They didn't always get along, and sometimes she annoyed him to exasperation, but he loved her very much. He loved exploring more, though. He had wanderlust like no one else, except maybe me. When he married his love, she stayed at home while he traveled. He would come home just long enough to resupply and barely talk to her. Eventually, she asked him for a divorce. It was then that he realized what a treasure he had wasted. He felt so broken and ashamed that he gave her everything he owned except for his sword and armor. All his gold, all his goods, and the house. He even felt like he didn't deserve his friends and said farewell to them too. He walked up into the mountains and took one last look at the city where she lived. Then he turned towards the mountains and walked away, alone. Okay, well, I'll be telling you about Sangria, the Avenger. Sangria was a vampire who lived in Skyrim. Even though her father was a vampire, he wanted nothing more than to have a normal life with a normal family and a normal job. So he found another vampire, a woman who wanted the same thing. They had a family, lived in a city, and to the world were completely normal citizens. That is, until they were discovered by a faction of vampire hunters. These hunters wiped out the entire family. Only Sangria survived. After that, she changed. Until that moment, she had always been the happy girl her father wanted her to be. But she didn't care anymore. She didn't care about anyone or anything except revenge. She infiltrated the group of vampire hunters and destroyed them from the inside. She killed them all. She got no peace or enjoyment, but she did feel a sense of justice at least. And so, those vampire hunters, trying to destroy monsters, created the very monster that destroyed them. Alrighty, let me tell you about Dragsy's Tale, the unlucky thief. Dragsy's Tale was an Argonian who just wanted to make his fortune without having to work for it, like any respectable thief. He tried and tried, picking pockets, picking locks, picking fights if he had to, but he never could seem to get ahead. Alrighty, let me tell you about Dragsy's. Dragsy's Tale was an Argonian who he tried and tried, picking pockets, picking locks. Over and over again, he tried to make a career of thieving, but he was just terrible at it. Every time, he ended up in jail.
Imagine having one job and you just suck really bad at it.
He was probably the worst thief ever in the history of Skyrim. Finally, one day, he'd had enough. He walked around the city and just waited for the first person to make him mad. And sure enough, it was the most powerful person in the town. So, Dragsy's Tale ended up in jail for the last time, waiting until his execution. You could say that he lost his head because he lost his head. Okay, Okay.
And this right here is everything she
All
has to
right.
say. Now you go through, tweak little things, tell her like where to move and stop moving around as much. But yeah, she is officially now your follower. And might add, she owns the most beautiful house in Skyrim too. But we are going to end this on a good note, over watching her overhang from the little balcony, looking off into the mountains of the sky. Such a majestic view. But with that, guys, till next time we will actually be exploring